So unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably heard of a brand called Sirui. They make amazing budget cinema lenses, including some anamorphic lenses that I'm a really big fan of. Now, all of those lenses feature manual focus, and the one area that Sirui's kind of lacked in is autofocus. That is until these lenses came out. So these are the brand new Sniper Series lenses from Sirui. And yes, these do feature autofocus. First of all, this video is not sponsored by Sirui. They did send me these lenses to test out and make a review on, but no money changed hands and they don't get to review this video before it goes out. This video does have a sponsor though, and that's Skillshare. I'll talk about them a little bit later. So we've got 3 lenses to check out: a 23mm, a 33mm, and a 56mm. All 3 lenses feature an f1.2 aperture, and they cover APS-C sensors. They also come in 3 different colors. I have the white version here, but you can also get them in a carbon fiber black or a really nice silver. Also, if you purchase the entire set, you also get this nice little travel hard case to go with them that will keep all 3 lenses nice and tidy for you when you're traveling, or just for storage. They're available in 3 different camera mounts, including Sony E mount, Fuji X mount, and Nikon Z mount. I have the E mount models, and all of the footage and testing that I did was done on my Sony FX30. Starting with build quality, all 3 lenses are majority metal construction. There's small bits of hard plastic here and there, like I believe the filter thread portion on the front of the lens is a plastic, but as far as the housing and the back of the lens, that is made of metal. All 3 lenses do feature a plastic lens hood, and with the wider angle lenses, the 23 and the 33, the lens hood is adjusted to compensate for those wide angles. There is a consistent design across all the lenses, meaning that the filter thread is 58mm on all 3 lenses, and they're roughly the same size. So if you're swapping lenses on a gimbal or something like that, you're not going to notice much of a difference between the 3 lenses. No need to rebalance or anything. The lenses are pretty lightweight, but they have a good amount of heaviness to them that make them feel premium in a way. As far as the cons I noticed when it comes to build quality is that there's no weather sealing and there's no optical image stabilization. There's also no switches on the sides for autofocus or aperture, but those features are a lot more common on more expensive lenses. The biggest con I noticed, I think, comes from the fact that I have the white model here. The paint finish that's on these is not very durable. I think you'll be able to notice on here, the 56mm, there's just some chips and dings on the edges here and maybe up here a little bit. The 23mm got it the most. I didn't do this on purpose. When we went to Disneyland a few months ago, I carry a little small bag with me that has my camera, a lens, and maybe an extra lens. At the time, I brought the 56mm and the 23mm with me. And while the 23mm was mounted on my camera, the 56 was free to roam about my bag. Now, I thought I was being careful, but I guess not enough because both lenses did get dinged up a little bit because of that. But if you're worried about that paint chipping, I'd probably avoid the white models. The next category is overall image quality, but specifically color accuracy between the 3 lenses. This is also addressing chromatic aberration. Within my testing, the 33mm and the 56mm were pretty consistent with white balance. The 23mm does lean warmer than the other 2 lenses and maybe slightly cyan. And if I'm really nitpicky, you can kind of tell that the 33mm leans a little more magenta. But as far as white balance goes, with my set, the 23mm was a little bit warmer. But honestly, that's pretty easy to fix in DaVinci Resolve. Just get yourself an eyedropper tool and you can get that white balance fixed really fast. Chromatic aberration is pretty apparent on the lower f-stops, especially at f1.2. All 3 lenses have a little bit of softness and blooming to them at the 1.2, and the chromatic aberration is very apparent. Once you stop down that f-stop to f2, 2.8, the chromatic aberration starts to go away, and by f4, f5.6, it's basically gone. I think the sweet spot with these lenses as far as sharpness and reduction of chromatic aberration is somewhere between f2 and 2.8. But if you're really wanting to shoot that 1.2 aperture and chromatic aberration is a big concern for you, I do have a solution. Now, I've been pretty transparent about the work that goes into creating these videos, but one area that I don't really show off that much is some of the behind the scenes. I've done some color grading videos before, but what you may not know is I work in Lightroom and Photoshop quite a bit. And I'll be honest, those programs are not my strong suit. So for the past few weeks, I've been on a little learning spree using Skillshare, which is the sponsor of today's video. Skillshare is this amazing online learning community where you can find professional tutorials on just about anything. We're talking photography, videography, graphic design, and so much more. So what I've been doing for the last few weeks is taking a Photoshop and Lightroom class within the Skillshare platform. And one thing they did teach in that class was how to remove chromatic aberration from your photos, which if you're going to be using these lenses for photos, that's a skill that I would highly recommend learning. Taking these Photoshop and Lightroom Skillshare classes in the last few weeks, I learned more than I ever did in my college courses on the same program. So not only do they have Photoshop and and Lightroom tutorials, Skillshare's library is packed with high quality, engaging classes taught by genuine experts who seriously know their stuff. So whether you're starting a new hobby or looking to master your current passion, Skillshare has got you covered. And because Skillshare is the sponsor of today's video, the first 500 people to click on the link in my description and sign up for Skillshare will get their first month free. So if you want to learn and master a brand new skill from experts, or just get a little bit better at a program you already know, like I did, then I would definitely recommend checking out Skillshare and the link in the description down below. Big thanks to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. I'm really a big fan of that website, so if you're interested, check out the link in the description. So with that being said, let's hop back into these lenses. Now the main event and final category that you're all wondering the answer to, autofocus. Obviously that is the main selling point of these lenses. They feature autofocus and the first ones to do so from Sirui. Given that these are made for APS-C cameras and cost $350, I wasn't expecting much. And to emphasize that even more, the first set of autofocus lenses from Sirui, my expectations were pretty dang low. I don't mean that to be insulting at all. I trust Sirui and the way they do things. Like I've been mentioning throughout the entire video, there are some really cool aspects about these lenses. Like I said in the beginning of this video, I tested these lenses on my FX30, which is the camera I'm filming on right now. And I really haven't noticed any autofocus issues with the FX30. First of all, there's a few different systems that lenses use in order to get autofocus. Linear autofocus is typically smooth, and the transition between focus points is a lot like using a cine lens and a person pulling focus. In the case of these lenses, they use a stepping autofocus system. So when I was using continuous autofocus, I did notice a fair amount of jerking and stepping in between each focus point, but it's common with every single lens. I will mention though that each lens did a pretty good job of capturing my eye and keeping me in focus with video using continuous autofocus. I did the classic YouTuber autofocus test, moving from the back of the room to closer to the camera, and each lens tracked my eye and kept focus pretty well, at least as good as I would expect from a $300 lens. In my opinion, out of all the lenses, the 56mm struggles the most. This isn't too surprising because it is the longest focal length, and those types of focal lengths, especially on budget series lenses, the autofocus does tend to struggle. Across every single lens, when I would go out of the frame and come back in, that's when it would struggle the most often. This doesn't happen very often in practical situations, so I hate having it as a test, but it is a good way to kind of show you how slow the continuous autofocus in video mode can be. I don't think it's insanely slow, but with all three lenses, there were times that it would take a couple seconds for the lens to actually get locked on my face. But I did take a few pictures while we were in Disneyland using these lenses, and the autofocus with photography was actually pretty good. With photography, you won't notice the stepping autofocus as much. So yeah, for photo, I have nothing to complain about with the autofocus, but for video, I wasn't expecting much, and I think I got what I expected. Now, it took me longer than I thought it would to come up with my overall opinion and recommendation for these lenses. In the case of these lenses, I've used a lot of lenses from Sirui, including their full frame anamorphics, their cine lenses, their compact anamorphics, and have always loved the image quality and use that comes out of those. But with these lenses, I had a few things to think about. I do like the overall image quality of these lenses. Even though they do soften up at f1.2, I still commonly use these lenses all the way open. On top of that, the way they handle flares really impressed me, and the bokeh and low light performance is much better than I thought it would coming from a $300 lens. But because Sirui is so new to autofocus in a market that's been practicing it for a really long time, I definitely think this is a first iteration, if that makes sense. At the end of the day, in my opinion, these lenses have amazing image quality for both photo and video. I think if autofocus is not your #1 concern and you're doing videos like this where you're talking to the camera and not going in and out of the frame, or you're doing slow-paced portrait photo shoots, in those cases, I think this would be a really good beginner set to pick up, especially if your main focus is photo. But if fast, reliable autofocus is your #1 priority, then I would either save up your money, increase your budget, or I would look at some other brands. Anyway, I hope this video was helpful in deciding whether or not these lenses are for you. You can really take my opinion, my words with a grain of salt. I really think that you should just do your own research, understand your needs when it comes to lenses, consider what type of work you're going to be doing, and make an educated decision from there. But anyway, if you enjoyed this video, maybe watch this video next, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell button so you never miss out on new young filmmaker content. Good luck filmmaking.